Uh-oh. How do you start a story? That's a lot to unpack, man.
Depends on the day.
It does depend on the day. It depends on the story, too. It's so much. It's just, you don't always start at the beginning. It depends where you get the idea, what hits you first. Like, I think half of my stories might start at the beginning. Maybe half of them, no, that wouldn't be fair, but they can start at the ending, they can start in the middle. You just kind of have to get into it, I think, is the beginning, is just put yourself down there and start writing. You can get the idea, you can plan it out first. That's a big topic itself too. Whether you want to overplan it or just kind of run loose, just run and gun. The approach, the tone, the setting, the characters, plot, like there's a lot of stuff with starting a story. I think the first things first is when you feel that idea rattling around in your head, is you just sit down and you just try and get something out. It doesn't matter how long the story's going to be. You let the story tell itself. Give the story enough respect to figure out its own journey. You don't know, and sometimes though, you know if it's going to be a banger, if it's going to be a monster. If you're writing in a room or a galaxy, a room could be 200,000 words, and a galaxy could be 2,000. You don't know until you start. I have a series of absurd stories that I like writing, and those are when I sit down with nothing planned. I just sit down and I get this one image in my head, and I just go for it. They're weird. They are very lucid, though. If you can get through all the bullshit, they tend to have a lot of some jewels, just buried in them. And those are just fun little pieces that you just sit down and start writing, just almost like word association. Just clear your mind, take your melon and spit some seeds out. Like just a good old strum on the guitar. See where that takes you, like jazz. It might be nothing, and it might be an island, and it might be an entire mountain. You never know. If you start out, when you're starting out a story, I recommend don't throw anything away. Keep all your notes. Keep all the false starts on separate files if it's on a computer, or all your loose leaf papers. Keep all that, because you might need to go back to it. You might have stumbled upon something and not even known it yet. The ending can definitely come first. I know Coward, the ending came first, for sure. The ending was was the second thing that popped into my head. The first one was the actual power that the main character gets. Spoiler. But then the ending was immediate. The ending was instant. I had to work towards the ending. I had to create this whole arc that arrived at this end point that I thought of. And yet the story still starts in a linear fashion at the very beginning. Funny enough, I had this problem I recognize. I don't know if it's a problem or if it's just like a thing I did, where a lot of my stories start off when a character either wakes up, so it starts from their bed, or in the bathroom, kind of looking in the mirror, brushing their teeth, doing their morning ritual. It's a literal start to a day at how my stories start, which I kind of just laughed off. I was like, fucking idiot. Like, how more on the nose can you get? But it made sense, and it works for those stories. Other times, there's a really cool thing nowadays is that they like to do, and cool, I hate air quotes, but picture them, is starting in media res. Just starting in the middle and then going back to the beginning. And the reason for this is there's a real hard-on for having action in the first 1 to 3 pages. That personally drives me nuts. I love a slow, methodical start. I love a slow burn. I love slowly getting to know what's going on, a character, a situation, an environment, and then building from there. Just giving it the respect, giving it the time that it deserves to build on its own, to gain its own momentum, and then it taking you for the journey. One thing that you'll hear a lot of agents, a lot of publishers say is if it doesn't grab you within the first couple pages, not even the first chapter, the first couple pages, then they'll throw it out. And it's true. They wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. And it's a tricky thing to navigate because your story might not start off with a big kabang or some kind of fight scene or this forced sense of action. But you have to find a way to draw it in. And media res can do that a lot of the time. I don't personally like it because it is borderline cliche. Now, I don't find anything wrong with cliches per se, but one of the things that we like to try and educate people on here is to take something common and make it their own. When you're starting with an entire structure, it is a little difficult to take that and make it your own unless you find a very ingenious way to do it. One thing I think you should start off with your story is write the whole story out and then possibly chop it up. Give it the old butcher and take pieces apart and move them around. You might start with the ending, like an old hardboiled novel when they used to say, like, how does a guy like me end up all covered in blood in the back of a greasy diner? And then they go through the whole story. That's also a cliche. It's a common trope. But it could be the time for that now. It could be that you renewed it and that you revitalized it and given it something of your own. Like I said, I personally love a slow, methodical start. I love a lot of the classic Russian literature, which just starts off at a crawl. It starts off describing the main character, getting you into their mind state. It lets you get a authentic appreciation for the person they are and what they're going through. You can also start with the environment, the scenario. I don't particularly enjoy this because you spend this whole time painting a canvas for something that really doesn't have to do with the story. However, if you start like that, it doesn't matter because there's always the editing. That should kind of be our saying here, is there's always editing. Editing will take care of a lot. Editing and an editor will help you figure out, is this a good way to start? Does this kick you into the action right away? For instance, do you describe the character right away? Are they watching something? Are they doing something? What are they looking at? What time is it? Is it a time and place far away? Is this going to be a slice of what's to happen? Is this going to be a complete non sequitur? Is this going to affect the plot dramatically right away? Is this going to be just a funny little outtake at the beginning and then you start, almost like a gag reel at the beginning, and then you kind of see what's going on? There's a million options. But the main part is to just start. It's just to kind of put your head down, start scribbling away, and just go. And that depends on how much time you think about it beforehand. If you just kind of go in balls to the wall with an idea, it might lose steam really quickly. If you take that idea and start to plan it a little bit, you leave yourself some room for discovery as you write, but you figure out, where are we going with this? It'll give you a better idea where to start it. Another really great way, as long as you still take it and make it your own, as long as you're still able to transform it, is to look at some incredible books or movies and how they start out. Do they start out with this crazy action scene? It doesn't even have to be a crazy action scene. It can just be something suspenseful, something with draw, something with that pulls you right away. You can dick around until you get to your first big moment. You can use that moment, those big first down markers, as these ways to try and figure out what goes next. You always go back to the beginning. You just start chipping at it. You just start getting to the meat of what you're talking about, and then you can go back and retool that beginning. You can move things around. It really doesn't matter. It's a cop-out to say the way to start a book is just to start, but that is the case. You won't know until you're going in there with the gloves on and moving around the viscera, until you're getting a feel for what's going on. Because if you're starting and you don't know, then you're going to have to discover. If you have everything planned, you want to make sure that your beginning still has a true and genuine sense of draw for the rest of the plot, for the rest of the story that's going to happen. Every story has their own beginning, and it's important to find one that is respectful and interesting as it relates to your plot and it relates to your story, because it might get thrown away after 1 page, 2 pages of read. You never know these days.